So big shout out to my daughter.
Yeah, so you got to be out of here. It's 8:05. You got to be out at 8:45. You got
8:45
classes to teach,
I got
church members to interview,
counseling, people
counsel.
to interview,
Yeah,
take my other daughter to the gun range.
yeah, gun range.
Busy trying to get her ready for boyfriend.
Yeah, all in time to be home at 4:08 for the opening pitch of.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be
Phillies
watching
Mets.
that. I'm not gonna be done till 8:00 tonight, man. I'm gonna be doing the Lord's work.
You're not gonna watch. You're not gonna watch the
I'm
Phillies
be
Mets
still doing
National
interviews.
League Division Series.
How
Where are
am
your
I-
priorities?
God's house. where are yours? Is that game today for real?
Yeah.
That's how out of
Game
touch
one
I
of
am.
the National League Division Series.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 4:00 this afternoon. Technically 4:08.
Our last interview's over at 8.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll miss it.
Well,
That's all right though.
we'll
We'll be bringing people into the kingdom. Well, y'all hoping they bring in home runs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it's okay. We all
That's
got
fine.
our calling.
Yeah. That's,
He got his big. That's why you got the Philly shirt on.
exactly why I have the Phillies shirt on.
All right,
I'm
well-
sending good, positive vibes to the Phillies.
Okay,
Through the
so,
Black
all
and
right,
White
so
Theology
now
Podcast.
we're in the karma. Now we're in the karma. All right.
When it comes to sports, it's a different thing, right? It's a different. Do you think God is do you think He's preordained from eternity past who's going to win this game according to His sovereign purposes?
What's the topic for today, guys? Aren't we talking about something else?
Sometimes
today?
I wonder, does it matter if I go to
Does
the
it
game
matter?
and cheer and Bryce Harper, is that, or is God like, nah, it's already set
determined,
from
right?
before the foundation of the world.
That'd be a good podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you and Andrew do that one later.
Wow, man. He's on fire today, isn't
Today is if you tuned into our last podcast, we talked a little politics.
he? Yeah, I got one email. Did you get any emails?
I did, yeah.
Probably the same one I got.
Yeah, from Mona. Mona Lisa.
Yeah, who is
Mona Lisa.
Lisa?
You don't know Mona Lisa? Hey, Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa, thank you for watching. I appreciate your.
Yeah.
It was a good response.
Yeah.
Good email.
Yeah.
I don't know who Mona Lisa is.
She attends Faith Church.
Does she?
Sutherland,
So
yeah.
you know who she is?
I do
Okay,
know.
I've
I
never
do know
met her.
Mona. Yeah.
We should
yeah,
have
so-
Mona Lisa on one of the podcasts as a guest.
we could.
No, I'm
we
serious.
Could. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She always has
hey.
some. Is she? Is it a he?
She.
I mean, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
the email.
She's a lovely lady. She's probably watching or going to be watching.
Well, Mona
so she always
Lisa,
watches.
consider coming on the podcast. I'm giving you a personal invitation to come on one of our podcasts, and we can interact with you.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I do appreciate her comments.
Yeah.
So.
No, that was a good email, and we love you, Mona, and hope you're doing well. Okay, so we're not going to totally delve into politics as far as candidates and stuff, but we are going to tackle an issue that does surround this presidential election, and that is the issue of illegal immigration.
Immigration.
Yeah.
That's a hot topic.
Yeah, it's actually one of the most prominent issues among voters
Yeah.
in this election cycle, right? Mm-hmm. And because it's been such an issue and because it's talked about and debated so much, I thought it would be a good topic for us to discuss and a timely topic for us to discuss, as we head into the next, month or so and continue to listen to debates back and forth. But even beyond just the election itself.
Yeah.
How do Christians interact with this topic, with illegal immigration? Because, as millions of people from other countries really flood into our country, most of them illegal according to our current laws.
Right.
Now some of them are our neighbors, church members.
Yeah.
And yet our country is divided over, and I think that the Christian church is divided over it as well, and I think there's some tension that some people have with relation to it, because these are real people, we got to care about them, but we have laws of the land, so we're going to delve into all of those things today.
Whew, this
in the
needs to be
next
like a part 1, part 2.
Yeah, and it might be.
I think it needs to be.
It could be. We'll see how far we get through things today, and then we're going to look at the Bible. Does the Bible talk about things like this, issues like this, and how do we interact with the Scripture? And based on what the Scriptures say, does that change how we need to approach this topic as a whole? So it's a big one, and it's one that it'll be interesting to kind of interact with our two different kind of worlds that we minister in, right? You're more of an urban context, I'm more of a suburban context, and I think we probably are going to. I think it's going to be interesting just to kind of, and that's what I love about this podcast, right? Black and white theology.
Yeah.
Just two different worlds kind of coming together under one authority of Scripture, saying, okay, how do we navigate this? And let's hear perspectives on both sides of the issue. So I don't even know I actually, this is an issue you and I haven't personally discussed between the two of us.
Right.
So we may get into it today and and disagree. I don't know. Maybe we'll agree. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this conversation is going to go.
Yeah,
but that's also why I love.
We'll still be brothers in Christ when it's all over.
That's exactly right.
You might move the W in the front. But we're not going to let that happen, are we, Andrew?
Nope.
We've come too far. We've come too far.
Andrew, I got to cough for a second.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you go ahead and call. I'll take it from here. So, folks, listen. Here's the deal. Well, let me give you, as you get yourself together there.
All right, I'm back.
Katie's answer. So I did ask Katie.
Yeah. Let's hear Katie.
I said, Katie, so we're talking about immigration. And I said, so what do you think? Mm-hmm. And here's her answer. I'm going to read it verbatim. It's okay to let people in. It just depends who.
You know what she means by that?
Well, I was on my way out the door, so I didn't tease it out.
That could go a lot of different directions.
That could go a lot. But there you go.
But I think I know what she means.
I think I know what she means, and I would agree with her.
Keep the bad people out, let the good people in.
Yeah, I would agree with her. So anyway, but let's jump into this.
Yeah. So with relation to illegal immigration, we have, even if you just look at the current presidential election and the debate going on, you have real, well, okay, so let me just kind of paint the picture here.
Yeah.
I think it's an accurate picture as I try to pay attention as much as possible. You have Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. Trump, when he was in office, ran on build the wall, build the wall, build the wall, right? And
right.
We've got to stop the flood of illegal immigration from our southern border. Don't necessarily have that much of an issue on our northern border. The Canadians don't care to come into our country illegally anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's people from really South America, Central America, Mexico, fleeing the poverty and the danger of some of those countries to our southern border. So when President Trump was in office, it was build the wall, it was curb illegal immigration, put an end to it. Now there were still people coming in illegally under his watch. But he did, I don't know how much of the border wall they constructed, but they did start it. Right. They did work toward it. He gets criticism because, he really didn't do that much with the wall. They started building it, and we ended up paying for it, whatever. Not going to get into those issues. But Anyway, it was at least something that he talked about, he ran on, and started to actually execute that plan when he was in office. Again, we can debate how effective that was, how effective the wall is. That's not the point of this topic this morning. The point is he runs on the platform of close the border, policies like stay in Mexico policy. If you try to come in, you're going to be returned right back to Mexico. And so he was trying to curb illegal immigration as much as he could with the presidential authority that he had. Okay, he's out of office. Biden and Harris come in, and they remove some of his legislative policies, not from the Congress, but the executive orders and things like that. And the border opens up more so than it did under Donald Trump for the last 3 years. And so immigrants have flooded in illegally. Again, and I use that word illegal because we're going to get into this. Oh, I don't think anybody's illegal. There's a bunch of language around this topic. How could you say someone's illegal? Well, according to the current laws of the land,
according to the law,
they're in here. They're not here legally. Okay, that's just a fact. Okay, so you didn't go through the proper channels. You're here illegally. So and they've come in by the millions, and they're not vetted well, right? So we don't really know who's coming in. To Katie's point, some really great people probably, who have real needs, and then some probably really, really bad people along with it. Is probably a mixed bag of people coming in, right? But the reality is the number of crossings exploded under the current Biden-Kamala administration, right? And that became a real talking point among conservatives for the last 3.5 years, like border. And so I don't know if you remember, they started busing illegal immigrants to major cities and sanctuary cities. So New York City was one. And so for the past few years, they're just busing illegals into these cities, Chicago, New York. Then from Florida, there was a big controversy because I think it was Florida, maybe it was the Texas governor, I can't remember, shipped a plane load of illegal immigrants up to Martha's Vineyard, where a lot of liberal elites live. And what he was doing was proving a point. If you are so loving and caring and welcoming of the illegal immigrants,
say hello to your neighbors.
Yeah, why don't you take a few of them and care for them where you live in your fancy mansions, right?
Right.
They got criticism for that. Oh, you're using people as a political tool, you know. So again, it's a hot topic, and it's been one of controversy in our country for a lot of years, but it's really peaked under Trump's first administration, now into the Biden-Kamala administration. And so they've turned elementary schools into housing centers for illegal immigrants, and then it really has come to head with the Springfield, Ohio Haitian immigration population, as we saw in the first presidential. Well, really, it was the second presidential debate, but the first one with Kamala and Trump, where Trump brought up the Haitian immigration, and so on one side you've got people that are. Now Trump is like mass deportation. I'm gonna finish the wall, and I'm gonna, it's gonna be the best wall. It's gonna solve all the problems of immigration. Then mass deportation. We're just gonna get all these illegals out of here, and everything will be fine, right? And so that's one issue. Now, I don't know if you remember the first couple of years of the Biden administration with the mass influx of illegal immigrants. They were actually coming across the border wearing Joe Biden T-shirts. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
like let us in, thank you, or welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so you've got these caravans, these mass caravans of immigrants seeking asylum in the United States or whatever, coming in and wearing Biden T-shirts, like, oh, Joe Biden is fabulous, he's great, he's welcoming us in, he's just so wonderful, and we thank Joe Biden for letting us in, right? So they had that as and they seemed content to be like, yeah, come on in, we're going to help you, we're going to love you, we're going to give you resources, we're going to help you accomplish the American dream in the country, even though you're doing it illegally, right? And so a lot of people had an issue, well, they're doing it illegally. But there was that. Then the presidential election starts to heat up, right, in 2024. And it was very interesting because, and this is the reason we're talking about it today, it's become one of the top issues of the election. And the polling data has shown that most Americans are deeply concerned about the current state of illegal immigration in our country. And so it has been a change, at least amongst Kamala Harris and her campaign, to start to talk about, oh, no, we need to fix this problem. Okay, and that has been a change, because for the first 3.5 years, it was Biden T-shirts, hey, nobody's illegal, we're loving, we're helpful, these people are seeking asylum, we're coming in. And now they've changed on that because of the election, like all politicians do.
I think I heard a report that there are actually a lot of Democrats that are now speaking out.
Yes.
At the Biden-Harrison policy and criticizing it, saying, guys, this is not good.
Well, even Biden, I don't know that he's pretty much a lame duck right now anyway. I don't know that he's doing much with it or cares to do that much with it right now. He doesn't seem to. He's going to be out of office in a few months. So it's really, what's Kamala going to do? And she's starting. She has to talk about it, right? Because it's a big issue.
Well, I think she went and visited finally, right?
Right, and she did. She did finally go and visit for the first time. So so the conservatives look at that and say, well, all of a sudden Kamala's concerned about the border. Right. The first 3.5 years she wasn't, and they were just open borders. It was people coming in unvetted, and now all of a sudden, because she wants to win an election, she's going down to the border and she's starting to kind of change your tune a little bit and say, no, we do have a problem down here. First 3.5 years, no problem, we're fine, everything's good, help these people. Now that we're in an election year, yeah, we do have a problem, and I need to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that is true. I mean, that's just the reality. And so what they say is currently, right now, border crossings are less than they were under Donald Trump, and that may be true or not true. I don't, you can always do stuff with numbers, but for the first 3.5 years, that wasn't the case. So there was this overwhelming kind of position amongst certain progressives, whether Christian or non-Christian, that no, this is good. Like these people shouldn't be turned away. Don't you have a heart? Don't you love people?
Right.
And so that was kind of the driving force behind, helping the poor and helping the people seeking asylum. And when it became a political issue, I mean, it's always been a political issue, but when it became a real political issue with regards to this current election, now everyone's talking, we need to do something about the southern border. However, in all fairness, Kamala and her campaign are not talking about deportation. They talk path to citizenship. Trump talks mass deportation. And there you do have. So everyone admits there's a huge issue here.
Yep.
That's a problem. What's the solution?
Yep.
And how do Christians now navigate this? Because this does inform your vote to some degree, but even beyond the presidential election, how do we live in relation to illegal immigrants in our communities, in our churches, And so a couple positions, all right? And I hear this one a lot, mostly amongst people in white suburban communities, is that so we asked the question. The title of is it a sin? Right. So Ron, what do you think? What's your perspective? Is illegal immigration sinful? Is it sinful to come into a country illegally? What's your thoughts as we kind of introduce this topic?
Well, again, let me make this comment first. I think we need to separate immigrants from the authorities who are supposed to maintain order.
Okay.
I think that's a distinction as we get into this conversation. And it'll probably run into another podcast, but I think that's important to make that distinction because it's going to have practical implications on how we, as believers, are called to treat people. Remove the label.
Yep.
How does God call Christians to treat other people? So we have to separate immigrants, the person, from the authorities that are supposed to be enforcing the law, right? I think that's just a blanket perspective that I try to keep when talking about this issue. So you look at Romans 13. So from a very clear perspective as far as are laws supposed to be maintained, followed? The Bible clearly teaches yes, right? Romans 13, being subject to those who rule over you, the laws of the land, the laws that governments make. God clearly gives a mandate. He clearly ordains this structure where the government, we are to subject ourselves. And you think about, we talked about this in another podcast.
Yeah, right before the summer.
Right, what that government would have looked like in the context of Romans and the emperor, and how did Christians navigate that? Because clearly Paul is saying, God is saying you are to submit to that.
Yeah, and you're to submit to it because the role is to uphold good and punish evil.
Absolutely. They are arms of righteousness, right?
Yep.
God's
that's the intended
enforcers.
purpose anyway.
That's the purpose. So from that standpoint, yes, if I'm coming into a country illegally violating the law of that country, then I am sinning. I don't think there's a gray area there.
Okay.
Now the question becomes, okay, so what are the nuances to this?
Do you think?
Right?
Let me drill down deeper.
Yeah.
And play advocate for a minute.
Yeah.
Do you think some of our immigration laws could be interpreted as immoral or unbiblical immigration laws?
The laws itself.
Because I think that's going to be part of the pushback. Like, oh, so I break the law and enter another country illegally, sneak in. I'm in violation of those laws. Therefore, I'm in violation of the commands of Scripture that says submit to those governing authorities. But what if you could make the argument that those laws are immoral?
Well, again, and this is
Which
where,
some people do, right? Like
Yeah.
there are certain immigration laws that are immoral
yeah,
because they don't, like for instance, Trump got under a lot of scrutiny in his first administration because of separating families at the
right,
border,
right,
right? So while there were less illegal immigrants coming in under his watch,
Yep.
he had this issue that people pointed out. This is, well, yeah, that's you're keeping, but what's the alternative? You're separating families. Now children are separated from their parents.
right.
Maybe they get back together with family. Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
So that was interpreted, well, that's immoral, right? Like he shouldn't be separating families at the border because of the immoral situation right.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm getting at with.
Yeah, and so
This isn't just. We want it to be black and white. This issue
it's
has
not.
a lot of gray in it.
It does, because so just on that point, so yes, is coming in, violating the immigration law, is that sin? Romans 13, I think, clearly teaches when God has ordained government.
Yep.
Now you come to, that's what I meant by the nuance.
Yep.
Okay, well, what if there's a law that's unjust, that's immoral? Does that entitle me to break it?
Right.
Right.
So if the law says you can't preach the gospel, well, okay, obey God rather than man, right?
And does that fall into that category?
Right. Right.
Does that fall into, the exception clause, right? If there was a law passed in our country today that said, pastors, you may not preach the gospel anymore, I'm going to break that law.
Right.
I'm going to proclaim Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Is the immigration laws and some of these laws in that same vein? And I think that's where we got to be careful.
Yeah. So if you've got a family that has come in illegally, and the government, and this is where it hits home, right, to a lot of Christians. I've got a family that we're friends with, our kids play together, but the law says you need to report illegal. I don't know that there's a law in books that say you have to report,
I
but
understand what you're saying.
that's what some people fear. You're going to
Right.
have to, turn in your neighbors and your friends. Yeah, maybe they're here illegally, but they're working, they're obeying every other law except for the immigration law, right? And they are now all of a sudden, say a law says you need to report that, you need to turn them in. All of a sudden, a lot of Christians will be like, well, I'm not going to obey that law.
Right.
I'm not going to turn in my neighbors so that they can be sent back to Venezuela or
Or if they are a refugee fleeing,
yeah.
like where there's legitimate persecution in the country.
And that's
where
that's where the political issue really starts to heat up, because one side says, one side emphasizes, oh, these are a bunch of, we're letting in a bunch of criminals who are going to rape your daughters and eat your dogs, right?
Yeah.
The other side says, oh my word, that's so xenophobic. How could they say such things? These are beautiful, wonderful people who are seeking asylum and refuge from an oppressive government and from drug cartels, and they just need to find safety, right? And so then they just start talking past each other.
Yeah,
the reality is both are happening.
And that right. And the sad part is, in the media,
I don't know, Andrew. I don't know about eating dogs. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Andrew's Haitian, so I actually don't know if anyone's eating dogs, but
I mean, we're not.
okay, all right.
So-
you're not.
I'm not.
Okay.
I don't think I ever have.
All right.
You've never eaten a dog.
No.
Okay, all right.
No,
Okay.
sauerkraut, ketchup. You don't.
No.
Okay. All right.
All right. You heard it from Andrew.
Yeah, and Andrew. Yeah. So, but here's what this is.
So you get both. You get both
Yeah,
sides
this
throwing
is-
stones at each other, and
Yeah.
both have merit in what they're saying.
But both sides are not making fair representations,
right.
and that's what complicates
You
it more.
polarize and you go to the extreme.
You
All these people are
polarize.
good, or all these
Yeah.
people are
Yep,
bad.
You got it. You start using reductionism. The sound bite that you want to make your point, like you said, it becomes a blanket statement, and you're already dealing with a very complicated subject, and then a lot of times you can't get the whole story,
Yeah.
and that just adds to the complication.
Yeah.
Right? But so I think as Christians, we have to look at this and say, well, what are the biblical principles, right?
Yeah. Real quick, Andrew, your family did come from Haiti. What's any thoughts as we're talking? No.
The only thought I have is one of the earthquakes that happened in Haiti. Would it be bad for my mom to want to bring in her
family,
brother or
her
sister's
family, yeah,
kids
sure,
to our
siblings.
house? Yeah,
Yep.
to just help them out.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I think
And that's
the people from my particular area of ministry would say nothing wrong with that at all, but you got to do it legally.
Right.
You got to do it legally. And so part of the frustration is this, and I'll share a story with you. The pushback is going to be, well, what if they can't do it legally?
Right.
And now they're threatened, they're in danger of starvation or
Yep.
or death or disease or whatever because they can't do it legally. We have a ministry in Uganda that works with orphans and widows, right? And we're taking a trip there in November. There's a particular young man that has graduated high school and has started taking college courses there. And there's a course he needs to finish up, and so members of our church have been trying to work out an opportunity for him to finish his final year of college here in the States, because it's just going to be a much better education for him, a much better degree, so that when he goes back to Uganda, he'll just be better equipped to have a much better career there in Uganda. And so 1 year, come and study, super bright. Ugandan, kid. I mean, he's in his mid-20s now, and they've tried every possible means legally to allow him to come in and study for 1 year, and every time it's no. And so part of the frustration is whether it's a family from Haiti trying to get their other family members in. A student from Uganda trying to finish up his degree so he can go back to Uganda and pour into that community and help make his community better. It's like, nope. So then this is where the moral issue comes in and says, well, okay, then you might as well just, and so we joke around, and the kid's name is, I just forgot his name. American name, we call him Daniel. Daniel, just go to Mexico, fly to Mexico, and then come across, the southern border, and then you'll get all kinds of resources, right? And do it illegally. Right. And so that becomes the frustration with with the current system that we're in, because it's like you try and do it legally, and you run into no. So, okay, well, then maybe we'll just do it illegally and take, we're breaking the law, but we're saving lives, right?
Right.
And so we create a hierarchy of moral ethics with relation to this issue.
Yeah, it creates a moral dilemma on a lot of different levels. Yeah. And this is, I go back to this statement of keeping the immigrant separate from the authorities and the law, because we're talking about people, and we can't lose that we're not. I think sometimes in hearing both sides and how they talk about this, the human aspect is like, we're talking about people here, right?
Well, and those more on the progressive side tend to emphasize that more, like because you do get on the conservative side, this is a horrible thing. It's destroying. I mean, Trump uses the rhetoric. It's ruining communities. It's destroying our country. It's And so we need to deport them. And a lot of people get on board with that because they're like, look at Springfield. That whole community's been ruined, and look at the crime, and look at the Laken Rileys who have been raped and murdered by illegal immigrants, and look at the influx of illegal drugs and fentanyl coming in and people dying. Like, it's ruining our country. And they have a valid point. The pushback then is, well, that's very xenophobic. These are people. These are actual people. And you're losing sight of that. And there's validity to that too.
So the issue becomes, as you said, these horrible crimes are happening. Absolutely. Then you have other people who are coming into the country, and those crimes are not happening. And I'm thinking of a single mom who has 3 kids, who's working 3 jobs under the table because she shouldn't be working, and she's feeding her kids, and her kids are in the school, what do we do with that situation?
Yep.
Right? Does that justify, well, it was okay for her to break the law? Absolutely not. Romans 13.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we have to be careful. It's like, okay, but that family is here now.
Yep. Yeah.
Now what happens?
Yeah. And again, this hits every one of us. My daughter plays intramural soccer in our community soccer league, right? And I coach the team, right? And I've been coaching since my boys were in elementary school, and now they're in high school now. And so now I'm coaching my daughter who's in middle school. And 10 years ago, in the community that we live in, it was predominantly white kids. Now, my last team I coached, I always go around and say, hey, what's your name and what's your favorite food? And I kid you not, it's like, my name is Jorge and I like tamales. My name is William and I like tamales. I'm not kidding, this exactly. My name is Joel, I like tamales. I'm like, all right, we got a theme here, right? We got a massive Hispanic community. I don't know if their families are legal or illegal.
Right.
I would imagine many of them probably have some illegal status. There is zero part of me after getting to know these families and coaching their kids and building relationships that wants to see them kicked out of the country, right, on a personal individual basis, right? And so I get that relationship where it's like, yeah, these are real people and these are families and they are trying to make it in this country, albeit illegally. So that resonates with me. I get that because you actually interact and know these people, right? Yeah. And become friends, right? And I'm sure even more so in the urban setting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They could be even members of your church. So let me ask you this, because we will not finish this in the next
this is going to be
8
part
minutes.
2.
So we'll do a part 2, because I do want to walk through the scriptures. And there's a number of scriptures that we need to wrestle with. And so we'll do that in our next podcast. But let me ask you this. You get a family that comes in and you find out they're illegal immigrants. And they say, hey, Pastor Ron, we want to come to your church. We want to be members. And you're interviewing them for membership. And you find out, yes, but we're illegal immigrants right now. What is your counsel to them? What do you say to them? Is it, hey, don't worry about it, just fly under the radar, you'll be all right? Morally, biblically, as a pastor, how do you counsel
and I've had this happen in real life, and my counsel is always, let's look at the current law and what you need to be doing to make your status legal. That's always my counsel. It's funny because I just had a conversation towards the end of this week that was very similar to that.
Okay.
And telling the person, okay, are you aware of this federal agency down here over in that building that will, you have to be willing to go in and say, I'm here. Here's how I got here, but I want to do it the right way. And our counsel is always, you need to pursue that. We'll walk alongside you and counsel you and encourage you. We'll feed you. We'll give clothes to your kids, but you have to be pursuing the legal means to be here. And praise God, for the most part, it's received. There's a fear there, no doubt.
Yep.
Because what if I said, I understand it, but right now you're not here legally. There is a protocol to follow.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to follow that protocol.
Yep.
And that's the counsel that I give.
The tension comes in an election year between two candidates, one who says pathway to citizenship, one who says mass deportations.
Right.
And do you find that pushes people to say, well, if I vote for Trump, it's more likely that I could get deported.
Right.
If I vote for Kamala, it's more likely that she's going to give me a pathway to citizenship. Do you find that factors in?
Oh, absolutely. Because look, why? Here's why. Because again, we go back and we're talking about people. You're talking to some people here who are established, have families, and there's a fear to be kicked out.
Yeah.
And is that going to influence who they vote for? I can't imagine that would not have some influence.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about your very livelihood, you're thinking about being taken back to a country that maybe you fled from.
Yeah.
I think that's going to have a big influence
Yeah.
on who someone votes
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But I think as God's people, when we, like you're talking about the people you coach, when we interact with these families, in light of Romans 13, which again we'll unpack, I have to move you towards what I believe biblically is sound.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the political
Yep.
turmoil, despite the back and forth,
Yep.
okay, biblically,
Yep.
let's move to do what is right.
Yeah, I don't know that it's any different if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Pastor Doug, I got saved, but before that, I was involved in tax fraud
Right,
and embezzled money."
right.
I would not say to them, "Well, that you were unsaved, you were lost
Right,
in.
that's
It's all
under
under
the
the
blood.
blood. Don't
Yeah,
worry."
right.
I would say, "Awesome that you're following Christ, but you have to make that right.
Absolutely.
You have to turn yourself in."
Right.
Well, that might mean I go to jail.
Yep.
You
But that's
probably
true
will be.
repentance too, right? That's
Right.
true repentance.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would counsel someone who broke the law, who came to me and said, "Doug, nobody knows, or the government doesn't know,
Yep.
but it's hanging heavy on my conscience. I need, what do I do?"
Yep.
You go to the police station,
Absolutely.
say, "This is what I've done. Turn yourself in," and then submit to the law.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard in the immigration situation to maintain that type of consistency and be like,
Right.
well, it sounds like you need to go down to the immigration office, tell them
Yep.
who you are,
Yep.
let them know what's up, and see if they can help you move forward
Exactly.
toward citizenship. Or what if they tell me I have to, I have to be deported?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might happen.
Yeah. It might.
It might happen. And I don't want that to happen. But you did, and it's hard because you did break
Right,
the law
right.
to come in here, right?
Right,
And that's the
exactly.
tension that we
Exactly.
are wrestling with
Exactly.
right now.
Yeah.
And so,
But if and let me just say this,
Yeah.
I know we get ready to wrap up. If that person that I'm talking to is a believer,
Mm-hmm.
part of the counsel I'm giving them is you have to trust God too,
true.
because you are now a follower of Christ, and you're trying to make right what you know was wrong.
Yeah.
So trust comes into this too. It's just not like God's like,
Yeah.
well, you're all
Yeah, it's
on
hard
your
because
own.
it's like, yeah, but I was saving my kids' lives by coming
Yeah.
here and doing this.
Yep.
Is that not what I'm supposed to do? And
Right.
but in order to do that, I had to break the law. Kind of what Andrew was saying.
Yeah.
If I bring my family in from Haiti and they
Right.
can't get in legally, then I got to bring them in illegally to save their lives, right? So that's why I say, well, then you break a lower law in order to keep a higher moral
Right.
ethic and
Right.
the preservation of people and lives and things like that. So it's not as cut and dry as, oh, these people are ruining the country, get them out so we can preserve our country. I do think we need to talk about that and
Sure.
the impact of mass immigration upon a particular culture and a sovereign country.
Right.
Because it does affect in a negative way cultures and communities, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so is that right? In other
Right.
words, they make the argument, you don't let just people come in and set up camp in your living room, whoever, and and start living in your house.
Yeah.
You don't allow that, right?
Yeah.
Why would you do it in your country and to take the culture that you're pouring into, you're paying taxes, you're providing resources, and then people come in and just take all of those resources
Yeah.
from the people that are contributing to that society.
Right,
So you
right.
have a real problem there, and that's
Yeah,
happening.
absolutely.
And that's part of why people are turning more toward the Trump kind of language of like, we can't continue to sustain this type of immigration
Yeah.
because it will, nothing against the people themselves, but
Right,
just the
right.
sheer number of people. There's this many resources and this many people. You
Right.
cannot sustain
yeah,
it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it
yeah,
will.
and then you have other things too that, and again, that's why this topic.
Because I've heard
is-
this
is-
even in the
is-
black community, right? Like,
Yeah.
these resources that used to be for us are now being given to people that are illegal. And so now people in the black
Right.
community are looking more like, okay, we need to, this is affecting our lives,
Yep,
right?
yep.
The people it's not affecting, and this is why the Martha's Vineyard kind of situation of sending immigrants up there was proving a point. The people that aren't affected are the people that have wealth and money in gated communities and stuff like that. And you see that in poor countries like in
Yeah.
Brazil and things like that, people that have wealth, gated, beautiful communities. Outside of those communities, you're on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, we've really just scratched the surface here. We
man.
know
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
we will pick this up in a couple of weeks with part 2 of this. We're going to delve into the scriptures. What does the Bible say about it? At the end of the day, let's see what the Bible says, and let's try and navigate this situation biblically.
Right.
And not
right.
just be emotional about it,
Right.
because this is an emotional topic, and maybe we'll kind of give some of our own personal perspectives with regards to how we view this and how we navigate it. And to some degree, I'm still wrestling with it as an individual person, as a pastor. Like how do we really, in a healthy way, navigate this this situation?
Yeah, it's and it's like you said. This is we want it to just be so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's so many different nuances that start coming out of this issue that you have to be able to stand back and again, where's the biblical principle that's going to inform my decision with this? Right? So yeah, but it is an emotional topic. But I think as believers, our point here at the podcast is, okay, this is a very relevant topic that we need to engage with, but we need to engage with it with a biblical lens. And sometimes it's easy to throw that lens off. Right? And just polarize. And it's like, no. We're called to walk according to biblical principles. And so, yeah, we'll definitely unpack that more.
All right. Well, on that note, we will wrap it up for today. And again, send us any questions or emails around this topic. We'd be happy to answer those as
well, I don't know if we're going to answer them. I'll read them.
Ron will be
I don't
happy.
know if I have any answers.
Ron will be happy to answer
we'll,
all of those.
We'll give them to our in-resident.
Yeah, Andrew will be happy.
Andrew will be
all
happy.
of those.
To, he's our
questions we have.
Yeah, I'll send you Ron's email.
All right, take us out with some podcast music, Andrew.
Make it good, man.